they immediately did so. So they came on site, they walked off the existing operator. The operator can come back to the property, still the owner of the property, but the actual operation itself is run entirely by the Department of Environmental Protection. So their sole mandate, as I understand it now, is strictly air quality issues right now. So they're, that's the mandate of the statute. That basically the reason they're there is the emergency that's associated with the the odor and the discharge of toxic gases into the environment and the effect it has on the surrounding neighbors and environments. So now we have issued a permit for the closure of Fenimore landfill to a company called Strategic Environmental Partners, SEP. So that is still in effect, but that person's no longer in control of the property. So what's happened is we met with the DEP when they took over the site. We did nothing but field changes up there, saying, wouldn't it be nice if you fix. And they're obviously their focus was odor issues, not runoff issues, which is what our focus is. So our mandate is that we regulate everything in the county that's of an urban nature. I'm just being broad brush, of an urban nature that is over 5,000 square feet of soil disturbance. There are several exceptions, but in general, anything over 5,000 square feet of soil disturbance, 50 by 100 feet, which Fenimore certainly qualifies for, that's going to be graded off, exposed to the forces of erosion, we have to issue a permit. We do that in the form of certifying an engineering plan, which is what we did for Fenimore under Strategic Environmental Partners. So now that that plan is on the shelf, and I believe will still be valid until the end of this year, maybe next. I don't have it in front of me. DEP's taking over the site, and they did some remedial measures based on our field directions to work on some of the perimeter issues and some of the runoff issues. DEP also applied a product called Posi Shell, or Posi Shield. I always get that next. Posi Shell. It's kind of like a weak concrete slurry that is applied over the whole area. And I want to be clear. The original plan was for 54 acres of soil disturbance. SEP, Strategic Environmental Partners, only got to work on or fill 18 acres of that original 54. That was their phase one. What's being brought to you now is DEP's attempt to close only the 18 acres. There's nothing taking place on the remainder 54 acres. To be clear, it's like 22 acres. Because of their closing the prior applicant's 18 acres, to do that they have to disturb around 22 acres of land. But in general, their focus is the import material that's generating the odor and putting down this cover and essentially what they call a partial closure. So in working with the DEP over just short of a year now, probably about 3/4 of a year, giving them field directions. It wasn't much to do this one because of the block ice, but most of our work went into the fall, into early December. And we inspected them. We hadn't fixed perimeter controls. They were very cooperative on a lot of matters. They're very sensitive about runoff issues, but it was not their focus. What it was after the machine and the operator done doing this odor thing, maybe I can get him to do an hour's worth of time for what you want. And we go up there and we just took a light approach because this is sort of new ground for everybody. It's unusual for a state to pass a law to take over a project. You don't run into that every day. So, but technically, the original applicant, Strategic Environmental Partners, is still the permit holder. And what's going on now is that we've now received an application for the permanent closure of the property. That came into our possession on April 4th. We've done a review. We've sent it to the design engineer. We sent it to the Department of Environmental Protection. They are essentially your applicant that you're dealing with. So the DEP is the applicant. You're a state level of authority. So they're a state level authority. So there's no trumping, your will, like maybe would take place at a municipal level. Even though you would safe to say that The municipal resources are much more substantial than in Joe. So our budget, you know, the municipal resources are quite larger, but there's this layer of government where we're essentially issuing a state permit you know, in compliance with the state law. So we've done a review that's up for your consideration now. Normally we don't do this, but considering the sensitivity of the site and the need for transparency, we've done a review. The township asked to come to it so that we can talk about the review we've completed. We've also worked closely considering some of the for lack of a term, the cracks between us and our state level of support. You know, you remember when we were dealing with the original applicant, there were certain things that we wanted that the state told us was excessive. Try and deal with one of the permits we issued to Strategic Environmental Partners, and then we had some back and forth. So in order to avoid that this time, we brought them in from day one. So when I got a copy of the plans, the state got a copy of the plans. When I walked the site to deal with temporary measures over this preceding year, we've always made a point to bring out the state engineer. So there would be no, you know, distance, no air between what we wanted and what they wanted, because we're both enforcing the same statute, and it'd be a little embarrassing for me to say X and they'd say Y. So that's where we are. So what we've done is we generated a review letter. We've there's 14 bullets that have to be addressed on the engineering plans. We received a set of engineering plans, a set of calculations dealing with runoff. We've commented on them, and one of the bullets is, here's the state engineer's review as well, address all his points. We've deemed the project incomplete. We are awaiting a response. One of the problems we always have with this circumstance is that we have a 30-day clock. We have to do 3 things within 30 days of receipt of an application. The 3 things are approve it, deny it, or approve it with conditions. The only out you have is to ask for an extension, which I have done and which has been granted. So we have another 30 days to approve, deny, or to approve with conditions. Those are your 3 options. If you fail to do any of the 3, it is automatically approved. And the term we use for approval is certified. We certify the plan. So that takes you out to June 4th, which really means your May meeting, which would be 1 month from today. So that's where we sit. Be glad to talk about the details if you want to get into the weeds about
Sure,
the retardant factors of grass waterways, you know, that's what you want to do.
I have a couple quick questions. One of the things that you mentioned is that Strategic Partners is still the owner of the property. Their name is still on the permit.
The other permit, yes.
The other permit. But you said that the state has come in with a partial closure plan.
Yes.
Do you foresee Strategic Partners trying to carry on after the 18 acres is taken care of and them wanting to continue with the project?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's just a world of litigation taking place at numerous levels, state, federal. I don't know if municipal level is still going on, but state and federal litigation is still going on. You know, my facetious comment about it was this is going to take, will be an answer in 10 years. I think that's.
But it's true that once you have a new operator going there, they have to get a new certification, correct?
Correct. They're doing something that's not what was approved by Bernardi. And I mean, someone can take over, for instance, in a private development, some guy can take over and say, look, you know, I'm doing houses 1 through 5. I'm tired of building them. I'm going to flip the project and someone do 6 through 10. That's not what's taking place here. What's taking place here is someone started phase 1 and these people coming in going, we're tearing all the houses down. It's a completely different plan. Different hydrology, different set of circumstances, completely different plan. It just happens to be taking place in the same footprint of the original approval that you issued.
Do you find any unique issues dealing with a state agency like the New Jersey DEP as far as getting compliance or a result?
Yeah, one of the things that we deal with often that there's a close connection between the Department of Environmental Protection Land Use Regulation Program, Division of Land Use Regulation, DuBois, the Division of Land Use Regulation. And the Division of Land Use Regulation is pretty much wetlands and flood hazard areas, what we used to call stream encroachment. So they had issued a denial. One of the reasons the Strategic Environmental Partners, one of many reasons, but one of the reasons it fell flat, the plan fell flat, was the applicant couldn't go outside phase one, because anything outside phase one was considered within the buffer of land use regulation areas. So, and the applicant did not have a permit for that. He actually had a denial for that. So what's happening now is that in dealing with the emergency, they have to go outside that area. Now, because we often have technical issues that need to be resolved with land use regulation program, we asked for something that required a structure be put to reduce erosion, may trip a permit down in land use regulation, may even trip a denial, and we have to go back and forth and come up with a resolution. But we have attempted in our rules and regulations to coordinate as best we can. So one of the things we are mandated to do, now to be very clear about this, you cannot enforce the wetlands law, you cannot enforce the flood hazards laws. But in order to coordinate, you ask simple questions like, wouldn't it be nice if your plan had a flood hazard line on it? Wouldn't it be nice if your plan had a wetlands delineation line on it according to the state statute? And that way, at least you get a handle. That's one of the reasons you deem something complete, if it has that information on it. You're required to do so, it's on the checklist of the application. That is not on these plans. These plans do not appear to have coordination, and I could be wrong, but they do not appear to have coordination with the Division of Land Use Regulation within the Department of Environmental Protection. So we've asked that question. They may prove me wrong and say, Joe, you missed it, it's on page 14, I don't know. It's somewhere in the documents, but I haven't seen it. I don't know, Joe, I haven't seen it, we've looked. So that's one issue that we brought up in the plan. Would you please provide us the wetland delineation? I mean, it's done on the other plan that you've already approved when it was a private applicant. Now that we have the public applicant, it's not there. So we've asked the question of the private engineer to provide that information. These are the same areas that the prior applicant was not allowed to work in. Could not go beyond. And they are currently in those areas. They are minor areas. That's the difference between the 18 acres and the 22 acres. The 18 acres is almost exactly the phase one. The Department of Environmental Protection's landfill section, there's so many organizations over there, I have a hard time collecting them all, but the group that's involved with approving the landfill closure is not the group that's involved with approving the wetland and flood hazard areas. They're two different organizations. But the point I'm trying to make is that phase one was specifically designed not to require a wetland permit. So there are 400,000 cubic yards of material out there causing all these problems that were brought there legally because the phasing is an odd-shaped amoeba of a fill is right into the limits of the wetland authority. And that was approved by one side of DP and denied by the other side of DP. Which is why the project got going.
Joe, your review of the plan, do you have any concerns with it or things that you feel are out of place? What's your take?
Well, I was pretty much just brought in really commenting on what Joe had started. I've been pretty much out of it for the duration. But as far as...
Therefore, Joe, based on your request, David, that we have our engineer look at.
Yeah, I mean, everything seemed, there was a few minor tweaks when we looked at it, but for the most part, it seemed to be in compliance.
It appears to be in compliance.
Water's going downhill. That's what it's supposed to do. That's what the plan allows it to do. There's issues they need to address. Personally, I think the rub is going to be not so much about the technical requirements, but the rub's going to be about the public bidding. The thing about public bidding is that you have to go out to bid and say, tell somebody this is what we're doing. And then along comes the permit issue, and so you change that bit. It's not about changing it because it's a big deal. You know, Mike can speak, Mike being the township engineer can speak about this. The issue is, I gotta change it, now I gotta deal with the guy who won the bid. You know, and then you have this friction there. So if we say, you know, the limited, one of the comments was, the limited disturbance that you have there for the 22 acres doesn't encompass the spoil you put out onto what was the prior applicant's phase 2, you know, buffer area for flood hazard, buffer area for wetlands. Please put that on the plan, because the Department of Environmental Protection put that fill there. I want that on the plan. You know, those are issues that they're gonna have to, that's gonna affect the bid. Move the fence. So, you know, I'm on the site, down into the lowest portion of the site, having them fix some of the stuff that was put in by the prior applicant, mucking out the collected sediment so it doesn't spill over and go off into the wetlands. You know, that's the Department of Environmental Protection down there, you know, digging up and owning it, from my point of view, and I would like that ownership reflected in this application. That they, you know, stabilize it. Instead, what happens is the pipes come out of the detention basin and they daylight into an area based on a bid line, but in reality, there's another 3-4 acres of soil disturbance there that needs to be stabilized. You just can't, you know, point a water cannon at that environment. You know, even though it's calculated properly, the receiving area's got to be stable. And, you know, the notes on the plan say the contractor should not go past this line, and that line is brown, rough, and steep, and right above the well, and full of garbage and full of.
But I mean, our concern is not really with the bid.
No, our concern is just saying, but what I'm saying to you is, when I say that to someone who's got to go out to bid, the response is going to be, you know, if we give them that, then I got to change the bid, and that's going to delay, and it causes issues. I mean, this is not my first public works project, and believe me, it causes issues. They come back and say, Jody, you have to, you know, and you go back and forth. You do what you can, but in this situation, I mean, it's a severe situation. Everything's on YouTube. You know, you don't want to be caught saying one thing and doing another. So I'm trying to be even-handed, what we do with every applicant.
My understanding of their design is that they're going to put detention or a water quality basin actually in the fill itself, the fill area itself.
Yeah, they're putting it's not a water quality basin, it's a stormwater detention basin.
Okay, detention basin.
Right, and
how are you gonna muck out a detention basin that's basically a fabric swimming pool?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I walked the field with them, I talked to them about it. I was given, you know, a rough engineering design, probably, I can't remember now. I want to say late fall. This is not an application. This is, Joe, we really like your input. Take the blueprints and, you know, give us some comments. So I walked out there with the design engineer and I said, you know, guys, the first thing I want in this county is a temporary sediment basin. It's basically a large hole in the ground that collects all the mud and weeps off water slowly. It doesn't work 100%, it works about 50%. That's the acceptable ability of it to collect mud and keep it there. So half the mud that gets there goes through it and winds up off-site. But at least it's something. And then when you add all the other measures up, you know, hopefully you do better than 50%. So it's a standard thing we do on most of our sites. And, you know, anything that involves the detention structure, it's very typical. In this situation, the problem we're running into is that the detention basin is in the sanitary landfill. It's in the garbage. It's not in the fill brought on by strategic environmental partners. It's below that. But it does call for a liner. So you put down a multi-million-dollar liner, and along comes the Soil Conservation District and say, by the way, get in there with a big machine and collect all that mud that you've collected over the year. Guess what happens to your multi-million-dollar liner? It gets damaged, leaks. So we're having some conflict there. I formally asked for the question. I'm waiting on a response. We'll see what happens. But, you know, they can delay putting in the liner on that thing. I don't know. I'm not a sanitary engineer. This is my 6th landfill closure, major landfill closure, and you know, I wouldn't even begin to describe myself as anybody other than just basically familiar. They have to put down this large liner, how it goes down, how it connects to the other pieces of liner they put down, whether they can delay it, do that at the end of the job, that's all up to the design. That's, you know, why they get the big bucks, so. He's been asked the question to give us a temporary sediment basin. He can put another one. There is this, you know, one of the problems is the plan we approved for strategic environmental partners, that situation that's been up there for well on 3 years was only sequenced to be up there for well on 6 months. There's supposed to be a detention basin on that site now. Strategic environmental partners, according to the sequence of construction, the project is supposed to be ending now. But it never happened. So the wetland denial stopped the installation of the stormwater management structure off-site. Off-site being out of the sanitary landfill. It was still on property, but not on the garbage. And that all ended with the denial and, you know, all the subsequent conflicts that went back and forth. So we were very patient. We worked with the applicant to make sure that nothing got off-site as best as possible, but it's far from a licensed engineer signing and sealing. This is how it should work, and it's been up there far too long. It was the first thing I said to the DP when he came on the site. You know, welcome, this has gotta be fixed, because, you know, this is, you know, designed by the, you know, the less than adequate brain factory of Joe Dunn and Richard Bernard, trying to keep the mud on the site while we're dealing with all these other issues. It's worked relatively well, but, you know, it's not anywhere on the